Hello, biologists. I want to show you some really cool types of cells. So I'm going to share my screen. Awesome. So the first thing we're going to look at is human cheek cells. So these were taken by scraping the inside of someone's cheek using just a toothpick, smearing it on a little piece of glass, staining it with blue dye, because your cells are not actually blue, they're clear, and then looking at it under the microscope. Here is the border of the cell that's contained by the cell membrane. So this is two cells being shown. And then right inside these little blue dots in the center, those are the nuclei. What we can't see is like the endoplasmic reticulum and the mitochondria, but we can see some really interesting proteins that also got stained. We're not sure what kind of proteins those are, but it's really cool that you can actually see the nucleus of these human cheek cells. Next, we have some beautiful other just general cells. These are not specialized like neurons or anything, which we're going to look at a little bit. But what's cool about these cells is you can see the border of the cell membrane. That's where this like gray purple end is. And then this was stained with different types of false color to show you the microtubules. So those are all microtubules in yellow, and then the nuclei in green. So we have a nucleus here, another nucleus here, and then all these yellow microtubules. So you can see the cytoskeleton of the cell. We have human red blood cells. Each one of these is purpose in your body is to carry oxygen. We call it a biconcave disc. It's kind of smushed in. That's what concave means. And it's smushed in on both sides. So biconcave, it's got two concave parts. And the reason that it's kind of smushed in is it doesn't have a nucleus because it doesn't have a long lifespan and it doesn't need DNA to make proteins, which is the point of DNA. And so because it doesn't have a nucleus, it kind of sinks in the center like you popped a bubble or something. But it also helps increase the surface area. And that allows these red blood cells to carry billions of molecules of oxygen, which is so cool because that's the purpose of your blood, is to transport oxygen to all the tissues in your body. Here are the neurons I mentioned earlier. These are Purkinje neurons. They're super cool. These are involved with motor movements. So they're in your cerebellum, which is in the back part of your brain. This is the body of the neuron. That's where you would find the nucleus. This is the axon, and it has all these incredible branches. Those branches allow it to increase its surface area so that it can talk to other neurons. So this is the whole branching structure of this neuron, and it can have just trillions of connections with other neurons. It's really incredible and beautiful structure. Then we get away from humans, and here we have brewer's yeast. Brewer's yeast is Saccharomyces cerevisiae, and it's used to make beer, but it's also used to make bread and to ferment all sorts of different things and cheeses and fruits. And so here you have one single yeast cell, and when it wants to reproduce, it does what we call budding, and it starts to create another cell where it will push half of its contents in, and then it will divide itself. So this is another one that's budding right here. So this is one cell turning into two cells. Here's a little bud right there as well. So this is yeast cells beginning to reproduce. Here we have fungal spore cells. A spore is similar to a seed, except it's for a fungus. There are plants that use spores too, which we'll talk about next term. Here are some beautiful spores with this really intricate pattern and these little divots to them. This was taken by me using a scanning electron microscope. So I dehydrated these spores and I covered them with a little layer of gold, and then I shot electrons at them. And based how the electrons bounced off of them, that allowed us to see their 3D structure. So these are cool for seeing just the details of the surface of a cell. Each one of these is a single cell. This is pollen. This was treated the same way, so it's dehydrated. I did not take this picture. And it's covered in either gold or iridium, and it had electrons bouncing off of it. And based on the refraction of how they bounced off, you could see these really intricate 3D structures of these pollen granules. We have a full cross-section of a leaf. We have lots of different cells here. These long ones that go up and down are called palisade cells. Those are going to be used to do the bulk of photosynthesis. Then a leaf has skin, just like you do. This is an organ for a plant. The skin is called the epidermis. And on top of it, there is a waxy cuticle that tries to prevent water loss. In the center, this blue, that's a vascular bundle. So that is the plant's cardiovascular system. So it's pumping sugar around, taking waste out. It works really much the same way we do. And then these cells down here are called mesophyll, and these are used for gas exchange. So a lot of the similar functions that the human cells do, plants do as well. This is the surface of a rose petal. When you look at a rose petal, it kind of shimmers and looks a little bit sparkly. The reason it looks sparkly is because the cells themselves are puckered like this, and that helps grab light and reflect the light off of it. So it looks like sparkly little diamonds all over the leaf or the rose petal. We also have some microbes. So these are single-celled organisms that are just one cell big, but that fits into our idea of life. That was one of our 7 characteristics of life, is you need one or more cell. This one here is called a euglena. So this is its whole body. The red is called an eye spot. It's not a true eye, but it does sense sunlight. And so euglena can move to or away from sunlight. And then all these little green packages inside the euglena, those are chloroplasts. So this is a protist. It's not a plant, but it still does photosynthesis. It's really cool. And then our last one is paramecium, which we're going to talk about a couple times this term. Paramecium is a pretty large for a single-celled organism. On the outside, you can see it has cilia. It uses the cilia to move. It makes like a wave motion with it, and it will wiggle through its environment. Here is a water vacuole. I'm going to show you a video of that later too. It's pretty neat. And all of the insides of the single cell will contain a nucleus, endoplasmic reticulum, mitochondria, everything that a eukaryote ought to have. All of these organelles are found inside of it, even though it's one single cell. So it's pretty cool. Every example we've seen so far is a eukaryote. We're going to play a game in the next video of where you identify whether or not something is a eukaryote or a prokaryote. Thanks for looking at these examples.